Hello, hi and welcome to another episode of the Emma Gunn Show and a continuation of my challenge, my project to lose 10 pounds, which I will update you on in just a second. But what I will say is that this episode is actually going to be responding to the question that I have had overwhelmingly from listeners, from followers and from readers asking me to say, where do you start? Well, they're not asking me to say, where do you start? Because I've just said it. They're asking me to tell them where to start. And I think it's such an interesting question. And funnily enough, it's the thing, I've talked about it on my Substack as well. What I hope to do with this challenge, as well as make some changes for me personally, is to also share with you what I've learned over 5 years. This is not over this challenge. This is over actually 6 years in really getting a handle on yo-yo dieting, on my weight going up and down, and also getting a handle on something resembling binge eating disorder. And the things that I have put into place that meant that I have not put the weight back on, I have not fallen back into self-destructive eating patterns. So that is what I'm going to be getting to in the main portion of this episode. But just to give you a little bit of an update. So last week, I enthusiastically told you how I had lost 4 pounds. And even I thought, that's a bit ridiculous. Because it would have been very difficult, given the weight that I was already at, to lose that much in the first week. And for that weight loss to be real, to be fat loss, which is what I'm aiming for, to lose fat and to build muscle during this challenge. We'll come on to that a little bit later. And I knew that it was a slightly skewed result. I also thought it was kind of bonkers, given that I had been away for 4 nights and I had been to a party. I'd eaten out twice. It just seemed a little bit strange, but I went with it. And I thought, you know what, this is probably more than anything to do with the intermittent fasting that I have started to do. And the fact that perhaps, even though I wasn't as rigid with my diet as I perhaps should have been for somebody who was doing a weight loss challenge, I was giving my body enough time to rest and digest. So maybe that was the change. Now, funnily enough, in week 2, my weight went up and then it went up again. And now it has come down. So I went up 3 pounds and I thought, I shan't be bothered by this. I understand the laws of thermogenesis. I'm not going to worry about all of this. And I did an Instagram reel where I said, and I'm going to eat a croissant and have a coffee because I'm tired. And I'm sure fatigue definitely played a part in what happened. I felt bloated all of last week, which was very peculiar because I was intermittent fasting. And that was one of the things that I felt that it really helped with. But all of this is to say, I didn't feel 100%. I knew something was a bit off. And so my weight went up 3 pounds. Bearing in mind I'd lost 4. That was a little bit of a kick in the teeth. But it stayed 3 pounds up. It stayed at that weight for 3 days. And I thought, well, you've got to be kidding me. I said it in a far more emotional tone when I said it to myself, when I got on the scales, because I thought everything I'm doing is right now. And yet the weight isn't budging. And then to add insult to injury, over the weekend, it went up another pound. So basically, all of those 4 pounds came back. And I thought, well, that's really demoralizing and dispiriting, but I'm not going to let it demoralize and despirit me, because actually, again, much as the 4 pounds in that first week seemed a little bit unreal, I also knew that that 4 pound gain in 1 week was unreal. And so I just thought, well, I will just be consistent. I will stick to the deficit that I have set myself. I will make sure that I am exercising. I will also pay attention to my body. I will do the 16-8 fasting window and eating window. And I know that those behaviours will get me to where I want to be, and I shan't be derailed by the scales. And sure enough, I get on the scales this morning, 2 of those pounds have gone. So I think, okay, if you actually look at the trend is downwards. The trend is that my weight over 2 weeks has gone plop, plop. It just happens to be that that's happened in the interim, which is what you mustn't focus on, which is what you mustn't get upset by. You mustn't get demotivated, dispirited, demoralized by it, because weight will fluctuate for lots of different reasons. I don't know why I was bloating. I was a little bit stressed last week. My sleep was a little bit off. All of those things could have contributed. I wasn't drinking as much water as I should have been. Oh, mental note to self, I've only had a pint today, so I must have more after I film this. So you get what I'm saying, is that there were some other factors at play that were influencing the number that I was seeing on the scale, but I shouldn't have let that, and thank goodness I didn't let that get me down or make me think, oh, well, what's the point? I shan't even bother with this, because that would have been such a big mistake. But that's the progress. The progress is still from day one to where we are now is a downward trend. And the other thing I will say about that is this. If you've been here for a while, you'll know that I signed up to the EC method, which is the training method from Chloe Madeley and Emma Story-Gordon, who are fantastic coaches. And during that 8-week program, they encouraged participants to weigh themselves every single day, and at the end of every single week, take their lowest weight. And so by the end of the 8 weeks, you had 8 data points of the lowest week of that week, and then you marked the trend by that. So even though I've dropped 2 pounds, that's my first day of weighing this week. So that's my first day of weighing week 2, sorry. I don't know what is going to happen for the rest of the week, but it could be that my data point for this week is actually lower, and therefore the trend, we don't know. But what we do know is if that I'm consistent in my behaviors, that trend will go down. If I'm not consistent, if I consume more calories, all of those things, ultimately, if I get out of a calorie deficit, my weight will not go down. It might stay the same or go up. So we just have to believe that the consistency is the key, and that while the scale weight is useful, it is not the most important metric that we are working towards in this challenge. So that's where we are right now, 2 pounds. So I'm a fifth of the way there, if you want to look at it like that. But right, let's get on to the question that most of you have asked me, which is where to begin when it comes to dieting, because this whole challenge, this whole exercise is about how do you start for the last time? Okay, so how to start a diet so you never have to start a diet again. This is the thing that I came back to time and time again. And this is where I threw my toys out of the pram. I was very bratty in my attitude towards this. In 2019, when I realized that my weight had gone back up again, I'd regained those 30, 40 pounds that I had lost. And I was about to embark on yet another something or other. I was going to sign up to another diet. I was going to enroll in something. I just thought, this is ridiculous. I shouldn't need this kind of support. I shouldn't need to keep doing this. If they worked, then I wouldn't need to keep revisiting. And you know what it's like. If your weight has yo-yoed, you get fatigue. And I mean, I signed up to Weight Watchers. How many times did I do Weight Watchers in my life? 4. So once as a child, and then 3 times as an adult. And each time you have to have a little bit of a gap between doing Weight Watchers or any diet where you sign up for it, because it's not, you get fatigued by it. You think, oh, not this again. There's so much to learn. There is so much to get your head around. So all that's to say, I just thought, well, I don't want to do that. And also there are plenty of people walking around on planet Earth who have never had to sign up to a diet, who are somehow managing this okay. Obviously, everyone's relationship with food is different. And that was when I discovered that actually my relationship with food was what you would consider an eating disorder, something resembling binge eating disorder. I had a very sort of feast or famine relationship with it. The only way I knew how to lose weight was to restrict and over-exercise. And then when I wasn't dieting and over-exercising, I was gaining weight because I always ate too much, which brings me to my first point. If you want to start for the last time, figure out where you are now. And this actually isn't anything that I have heard anywhere else really, sort of, but not as sort of like week 1 of your diet is do nothing, but just track everything, literally. So week 1, if you think, okay, I want to do this for the last time, you kind of need to know what you're working with. And that's what I did in 2019. I thought, well, where am I now? How many steps am I doing? How much exercise am I doing? How well am I sleeping? What am I actually eating? And so I went through a period of just being very honest about what I was consuming, when I was consuming it, how much I was exercising, how many steps I was doing. And it highlighted that it was very sort of, again, a little bit feast or famine. Like I'd exercise really hard for 1 week, but then maybe I would back off because I had terrible delayed onset muscle soreness, or I was a bit whacked out from exercising. I would eat well for 1 week, but then that would be a little bit too hard. And so the next week you could sort of feel the wheels coming off. So when I actually looked at it and was honest with myself, I thought, okay, there's a lot going on here that I'm not noticing, which is perhaps when I'm stressed, there's a tendency to sort of panic eat, or when I'm overtired, there's a tendency not to exercise, but then not do anything at all. So my steps and all those sorts of things were low. So actually, even though on the outside, my behaviors might have looked good, and even to me, maybe 50% of the time, they were pretty decent, it was what the other 50% was doing, which was sort of undoing all of the good work. So my advice, my step one is figure out where you are now. So track your food in an app like MyFitnessPal for a little while with no restrictions, no nothing. Just don't worry about anything. Just log it and see how many calories you're consuming. Take a look at your macros. If you're a woman of a certain age, as in if you're in your 40s like me, I focus very much on protein. So today, for example, I already know what I'm going to have for dinner. So I've already inputted everything into MyFitnessPal, and I know that I'm going to get just over 120 grams of protein in. And so I'm like, yes, brilliant. My fat is under 30 grams, fantastic. And my calorie total keeps me in that deficit that I'm working towards. Fan-flipping-tastic. And I am full. I do not feel that I'm restricting. I feel like I have enough variety. I feel very, very good about it. But just for that first week, just think, okay, what am I doing? Am I moving around? Am I making the time to walk? What am I working with? Because once you know what you're working with, you can make adjustments. And the reason why I say figure out where you are, like find out where you are right now, is because whenever I've signed up for a diet before, even if it's not a diet that you sign up for, even if it's just going into MyFitnessPal, which I think is a great app, but if you go in with a goal to lose a certain amount of weight a week, you could be put on a calorie target that is too low, isn't sustainable and maintainable for most people. It wasn't for me. Some people might thrive on it, but for me, I think it just sets me up for failure. But if you know where you are working from, you know what adjustments to make. So if you know that actually, on average, you're consuming, let's just say 3,000 calories a day, you know that you can begin to adjust that, and you could begin to adjust that gradually. So you could reduce it by 250. And then once you've comfortably done that, you could reduce it to 2,500 and so on. It's just that thing of figuring out where you are. The same is true for steps. I would say every time I say the same is true for steps, I do think about the band. I do think about H from Steps and Lisa's Got Lee. What can I tell you? Anyway, so every time I say steps, I won't say it anymore, but every time I say steps, just know that that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about them. So I've got to move on from that. But if you look at how many steps you're doing a day, and then you look at how many steps you've done over the course of the week, you can go, okay, so, I mean, I will be very honest and say that there are days, if I'm working from home and I don't get a chance to work, I still might work out, but I struggle to get over 5,000 steps. So that's when I'll do a walking video, especially if it's late or if it's dark, or in winter, I don't go out in the dark. I like to get my steps in. I like to get my exercise in, but not at my own personal risk. So I'll do a working walkout. I'll follow something on YouTube, or I'll just watch TV while I was marching on the spot. And I know that seems really boring, but it counts. It counts. Anyway, once you figure out how much you're doing, you can begin to increase it. So you can say, okay, well, actually, I am only doing 5,000 steps a day. And say that we're working towards, there's this arbitrary figure of 10,000, which I think most people have seen the articles about. It was just kind of an arbitrary figure plucked out of the air because it was a nice big round number. But a lot of people work towards 10,000. I kind of have that as my minimum. But recently, I've been quite bad at being able to get my steps in because of various things that have meant that I haven't been able to go out and walk, although I will do that after I've done this. And my steps have been coming in a lot lower, so I've been doing a lot more of these sort of walking workouts at home. But I know that now my absolute lowest is 8,000. 8,000 steps is my absolute bottom. But that if you're working with, okay, I'm only doing 5,000 a day, increase it to 6. And then once you get comfortable with that, increase it to 7. And feel what works for you. So I think knowing where you're starting from is really valuable. The second thing I would say is don't cut anything out, please. But pay attention to how things make you feel. Because I was one of those people for a really long time. I think I was brought up on that generation of those adverts for food that were everywhere. So for me, toast isn't toast unless butter goes from edge to edge from corner to corner in quite a decent layer. Same for jam, same for Marmite, same for anything that you put on the top. So I kind of like, I want my breakfast to look like it does in the advert. I want my bowl of cornflakes to look like it does in the advert, which is a big old pile of cereal in a bowl. Side note, a 30-gram portion of cereal, which is which is a portion size, in which if you look on the back of a cereal box, and if you actually weigh out 30 grams of cereal, it's nothing. It's nothing, which means that most of the time that I was eating cereal back in the day, unmeasured, I was probably having 3 to 4 portions, which when you add that up, I think the average portion, 30-gram portion of cereal is around 150 calories. If you think I was having 3 and sometimes 4, it does make you realize why those calories were mounting up. And actually, I didn't feel great after cereal. I didn't ever feel full up. I feel much more satisfied and satiated after eggs, for example, or eggs and avocado, or what else do I have in the morning? Even a protein shake or yogurt with fresh fruit in. That makes me feel full up. And it's usually a bigger portion than a bowl of cereal that I want at least 3 portions of. So that would be my thing. Don't restrict anything, but pay attention to how you feel. And 9 times out of 10, all of those foods that I thought I really wanted, like fast food, like I look at people eating fast food, like breakfast muffins and things like that, and I think, oh, I wonder if that's really nice. Whenever I've tried it, I've thought, doesn't taste as good as I think it will. And also, it doesn't fill me up. It's not satisfying. Maybe it's a sign of age, but as I get older, I'm far more aware of the food that makes me feel good. And by feel good, I mean, gives me a bit of energy, makes me feel light on my feet. It's tasty. It sounds so daft, but all of those years when I was signed up to all of those diets that restricted things, actually what I used to do was I would then limit the food that I now realize made me feel good to accommodate the food that made me feel bad, because there was still something in my brain that was saying to me, chocolate, sweets, cakes, all of those things, that's the really good stuff. And without realizing that all of the really good stuff that I've learned since is actually none of those things. They don't make me feel as good as I thought they would. They may be in the moment. Let's just talk about, especially if you get it fresh out of the oven, like a fresh out of the oven pan au raisin or a fresh out of the oven apricot croissant, nothing compares. And an almond croissant, if you really are feeling yourself, I mean, nothing compares to that moment in your mouth. Or a pastel de nata, my God. Oh, I love a pastel de nata. My friend Jo, who owns Rome Skincare, by the way, brilliant skincare range, she got me onto pastel de natas when we went on a road trip together. We went away for a couple of nights together. And now there are days when I think, oh, it's pastel de nata day. The pleasure is definite, but it is temporary. And I think that leads me neatly into point 3. And point 3 is zoom out. And this is the thing that I was never able to do with food, because especially if you have a tendency to overeat, especially if you are someone who binge eats, it's in the moment, you have tunnel vision, you can't compute anything else. It's impossible to be rational, because I mean, there have been times when I've woken up in the middle of the night and I've made pancakes. That is completely irrational to want to feed yourself in the middle of the night. It was a completely irrational urge that I got up and met and fed. So one of the things I learned to do was zoom out. I also call it take a beat before you eat, which I really want to trademark. But it was thinking about, okay, the mouthful of pastel de nata in the moment is going to make me fantastic. I absolutely believe that to be true. I know it to be true. I have many data points of having a mouthful of pastel de nata and knowing that it feels damn good. But is it going to make me feel good for the rest of the day? Is it going to be worth eating that? And what it might mean that I can't have later on that might actually be better for me. It's just sort of zooming out and looking at the big picture. And it can be daily and it can also be weekly. Because I think the other thing is that when you are dieting, it becomes very easy to say no because you're on a diet or because you're trying to lose weight, shall we say. And actually, I've done that many times where I haven't gone to dinner with friends. Very last minute, I've cancelled on people because I've thought, I don't want to eat anything else today. I don't want to be in that position where I drink that much. And actually, I reject that because that's no way to live. Even if you are on a weight loss or a fat loss phase or you want to lose weight for whatever reason, it has to also be something that you can accommodate into your life. And if seeing your friends and going out is part of your life, you must not exclude it, because that is when dieting becomes miserable. It's when you look back at the success of your weight loss and you don't see the success of your weight loss. You see everything else that you had to sacrifice and deny, and it can mess with your head. And I think that's when people talk about how dieting makes them feel miserable. It's because they implement this no mentality, this I can't mentality. It's all very negative language. And actually, if you think, okay, I know that this week I have a work dinner, for example, or I've got lunch with the girls on Saturday, or whatever it is, you've got a social event where you know there'll be more food and drink, or food that you have less control over, meaning you don't decide what makes it up. You're going to go to a restaurant and you're going to make the best choice that you can based on that menu, but there'll be drink. But you should enjoy that, because you think, okay, I've got that coming up, so that's going to be a big-ish day. So are there other days this week where I can be a little bit more reserved? And it sounds really daft. And again, it's not about restricting. It's just, if instead of looking at daily calorie count, what if I look at my week? And I think, okay, well, I could actually knock off a few there because I feel really comfortable with the deficit that I've given myself. And I can have those on the day when I'm out. That sort of thing, zooming out and just looking at the bigger picture rather than always being right in front of you. Oh my gosh, this is the decision that I've got to make now. Take a beat, have a think, zoom out. That's been probably, in terms of me overcoming all of the issues I've had with food, that's probably been the biggest thing. Rather than just thinking, I'll have it, is just going, okay, will this make me feel good? Is this going to derail all the effort that I've put in previously? Will I enjoy this? All of those things. And there are times when it's absolutely like, yes, I will enjoy it. I'm going to lean into it. We mustn't restrict. We mustn't deny ourselves. We mustn't get into that negative vocabulary. But at the same time, if you do have a goal, it's understanding how you can accommodate those things into the bigger picture so that actually it doesn't derail you. It's just, rather than a smooth sort of consistency in terms of numbers throughout the week, you have consistency, but there are sort of, you get to where you want to get to, but every day can look different, or most days can look the same and a couple of days can look different. I hope that makes sense, because I think zooming out is so important. Okay, there are two more things that I want to talk about in terms of starting so that you never have to start again. One is something that I used to think about, and I have some really good friends who have also been or are on this yo-yo dieting roller coaster, who say the same thing. And I used to say this, and now I don't say it, but I used to say things like, I need to be in the right headspace to lose weight. And that was because I only had previous experience of successful weight loss if I was restricting and denying and saying no and choosing misery. I was such a good dieter. I was so good. I mean, if I had handed it to a personal trainer or to a dietitian and said, this is what I eat, they would have been like, wow, you are so good. But actually I wasn't, because I could only be those things temporarily. I could only be that good, that rigid, that restrictive I did pretty well. I could do it months at a time, but I couldn't eventually maintain it. And so it became a huge problem in terms of, I would always fall back off and put the weight back on. So this headspace idea, and again, it does relate to exercise. It relates to this idea that you have to be in the gym, constantly hammering it. And this is something that I learned, and I thought, oh my gosh, why did I not see this before? Because it's been staring me in the face the whole time. So this sort of mingles into point 5, I guess, because I need to be in the right headspace, but also for those of you who hate exercise and don't want to, when you look at your total daily energy expenditure, which is the amount of calories that your body will burn in a day, it can be made up of a few things. You've got your base metabolic rate, which is the calories that your body requires just to basically, have a lazy day. So, you could get up, sit on the sofa and watch Running Point on Netflix for 8 hours, which I advise you do because it's fantastic. Well, maybe not in one session, but you know what I'm saying. And the calorie effort of your body, the calorie burn of your body through the day would be quite low, but that would be your base to kind of stand you up, sit you down, digest your food, all of those sorts of things. Apologies if you can hear screaming. There are children outside and I shan't stop my work for it. Then you have the energy that you expend when you're exercising, and you also then have the energy that you expend when you are going about your day and you are getting steps in and all of those things. And I used to really focus on the energy expenditure when I was exercising. I would hammer that and I wouldn't think about the rest of the day. So when you look at if you were to draw a diagram of your total daily energy expenditure, at the top you would have eat, which is, let me just double check this because I did get it wrong on Instagram stories the other day. Eat is your exercise activity thermogenesis. So that is the amount of calories that are burned during your exercise. And as a percentage of your total daily energy expenditure, it's less than 10%. Then you have TEF, which is the thermic effect of food. So this is the calorie burn required to digest your food. And again, that's probably around 10% of your total daily energy expenditure. The part of your energy expenditure other than exercise that you can control is something called NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So this isn't about gym activity. This is about, God, it's such a cliche, getting off a bus stop early or a tube stop early and walking to work, or walking to work if you can, or walking around the block on your lunch hour instead of sitting on your phone. It's all of those things that you think, if you have an Apple Watch, as I do, you might get the alert every hour to say time to stand. And when you get those 10 minutes, because it's always at 10 to the hour, or it is on my watch, that's your opportunity to increase your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, because you can get up and you can walk for 5 minutes. You can do anything. I was a big fan of Tim Ferriss a few years ago, and I was always like, before I'd eat, I'd do like 10 squats and all of those sorts of things, because those are things that they're not an exercise as such, but they're something that will have a dramatic impact on your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which will increase your total daily energy expenditure. And again, you work from there. You can you can work your way back and then work out a deficit. So I'm all for exercise. I love exercise, but actually when I saw my weight really change was when, instead of hammering the gym 5 times if I could, I just trusted, and I gave myself, I think it was either 8 or 12 weeks. I said, right, for the next however long, I am only going to exercise 3 times a week. And I wrote my own programs. I followed Alice Living. I follow Alice Living. She has brilliant, her Instagram is an absolute goldmine of not just exercises, but good form stretches. Like, she's a very, very good personal trainer. She really, really is. And I would go through and I would like, okay, well, I'll take that exercise from that thing that she's done. I'll take that exercise from that thing. And then I had a Bosu ball. And what I would do is I would train with weights for around half an hour to 35 minutes. And in between the strength training exercises, I would do these little hop jumps on the Bosu ball to keep my heart rate up. And then I'd go back into like my lunges or my squats with my weights. And then and I did that. I was just consistent with that. And sure enough, that plus trying to get in those 10,000 minimum steps a day made such a difference, because I just, instead of going to exercise or going to the gym in a panic of I've got to do this because if I don't do it, then I just thought 3 sessions a week will make a difference. However, 3 sessions a week plus getting in those steps, walking when I can. So if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you'll know that when I travel into London, I do not get public transport unless there's a really good reason. The other day I did use public transport because I was going east and I have no idea. I just don't like it. But I always walk, and I will walk and walk and walk. I will make time between my appointments so I have time to walk to the next one, because I absolutely love having a day of appointments, getting 4 appointments in. And sure enough, usually if I've done it right and I'm not too tired and I do them all, I probably get between 15 and 20,000 steps in if I make my working day, if I can, what's the word I'm looking for? If I can make it so that my working day has a lot of those steps in, has a lot of walking in between, enough walking in between, 20 minutes say, then I can make sure that I get those steps in. And then I've made a working day a really active day, especially if I've not been able to get up and do a workout in the morning. But then there's a lot to be said for having the rest. And I do think that when I was doing those little workouts that I was building from Alice Living's page, I think that the fact that I did the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I tried to be as rigid with that as possible, I think that actually the fact that I gave myself time to recover also really helped. We can get into that another time because we are getting into the nitty gritty of it. But those fundamentally are my sort of my advice for starting so you never have to start again. And the first thing is, if you're here and you're panicked and a lot of people have sent me messages saying, I'm on the same page as you. I've absolutely been, this is where you've been is where I am, and I really want to get off it. Just figure out where you are right now, because once you figure out where you are now, that's when you can begin to make those small incremental changes. And I suppose that leads me into my final point, which is it does take time. Don't rush it. Because this is one of the things that the fad diets, or all of the diets that you have to sign up for, kind of not fool you into, but you will always have a very pleasing result, usually in that first week of whatever diet you sign up to and you follow. And that's usually because the change has been quite drastic. But then that's when the maintenance, or not maintenance, but that's when maintaining that level and it begins to get disappointing, because you're like, well, I'm doing the same thing I did in week 1, but I'm losing less. And then you hear all this guff about blah, blah, blah. But if you just figure out where you are and then start to make incremental changes, then you can watch that trend. Maybe it's slow to begin with, but as they begin to embed, because fundamentally this is all about behavior change. This is all about changing your behaviors. The way that I eat, move, live now looks very different from how it did 7 years ago, 6 years ago. But there's no panic, there's no worry, there's no stress related to any of the things that used to cause me nothing but stress. Like food used to cause me stress all the time. Exercise used to cause me stress all the time. Am I doing enough? Should I do more? Did I push it hard enough in the gym? I've been able to release all of those things through gentle, small changes that have built up over time. So that's what you're really working towards. I know I've said I've talked about this arbitrary 10-pound weight loss, and I know I've said that, and I know that's a bit daft, but I also, you might have noticed, I said it could take me 4 to 8 weeks. I don't know. I am just going to be consistent, and I'm not worried about when. I'm just concerned about taking the steps that I need to take to get there, and hopefully that will happen. So I wish I could say, just do this and it'll happen. It won't. It really is. It's about changing all of the behaviors that I think all of us have been subjected to through years of sort of all of the diet messaging that's been everywhere. It's about releasing yourself from those, forgetting those almost, and thinking, what do I know makes sense? Okay, well, the reason why I say don't sign up to a diet is because they're all of them are getting you to look at food through their own personal metric, which is also quite restrictive. So whether it's points, whether it's sins, whether it's anything else, it might be helpful for some people, but there are calories on everything. And so if you want to measure calories, and we know that the scientific method of thermogenesis of losing weight is to get into a calorie deficit, then just use the stuff that's already free and on the back of the packaging. The EC method that I've been a big fan of, and I've done myself, they use calories. They talk about a calorie deficit. And the reason why a lot of those other diets work that you may have signed up for, that I've signed up for in the past, is they might be measuring points, but fundamentally you're in a calorie deficit. If it's working, if they've given you a number of points that you can eat in a day, it is just a point value that is equal to a calorie deficit for you. So cut out the middleman, stop paying somebody else, and just, I think, stick to calories, and don't be daft. Please don't drop to the bottom of your limit. Don't over restrict, because that won't get you to where you want to be. Because let's face it, what we all want to be, particularly if you're watching this or listening to this and you're a woman of my age or around that age, we want to be strong, we want to feel vital, we want to feel energized, and we need to eat well and exercise well to do that. And also we need to move, because what's the expression? What's the expression that's just completely out of my head? Well, you lose it, don't you? You move it or lose it. I thought it was something different, but it is. It's just move it or lose it. If you don't do something, you'll suddenly try again. You'll be like, I can't do the things I used to do when I was younger. And it's about trying to make all of those things physically that are available to you now, available to you in the long term. Stretching, exercising, pushing yourself a little bit. So I hope that that has helped. I hope that that kind of gives you an overview of how I think one can start. I'm also going to write a Substack on this where I list this out. If you want a reference point to go back to, you can obviously listen to this, but I know that if you're anything like me, you like listening to things, but you also like to have a visual or something written down in a list so that you can kind of screen grab it or come back to it. So I will put this over on Substack. But if that has been helpful, please let me know in the comments. Please get in touch with me, office@emmaguns.com, DM me on Instagram where I'm at emmaguns, or comment below this video if you're watching on YouTube. I'd be so grateful for your feedback. And if you think, actually, I still don't know where to start, then let me know and we can refine it, and I can come back with something that maybe hits the mark for you a little bit more. It just hits the target, because I understand the most frustrating thing is you just want to know how to do it. And it would be so nice if someone went, do this, 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 and this. And that for those things to be quite crystallized. And that's what the diets do. They're like, do this, 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 and this. But actually it's do this, 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 and this that works for you. So actually this is like you figuring out all of these points that I've talked about is hopefully enabling you to figure out what your non-negotiables are, what your sort of pillars are that will get you to where you want to be, rather than a pillar that belongs to a mass-produced diet or somebody else. So that's what I'm trying to get towards, because I think once you get a handle on your own stuff, as I did, I think that's the quickest way and the most long-term solution to the problem of yo-yo dieting, and to always feeling like you're battling with your weight or you're fighting with your body about what size you think you should be and what size you actually are. So let me know. Please do get in touch with me. All of the ways in which you can get in touch with me are in the show notes. They're under this video. But please do get in touch if you think this has been helpful, or if you have any further questions and you would like me to elaborate on anything, then please do also get in touch, because this is my challenge, but this is us doing it together. So let's do it together. Help me out. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you on the next one.